In this video, what I'm going to be doing is showing you guys some of the most interesting mods that have been recently released for Fallout 4, and a couple of these are quite monumental. One mod that is, although fairly simple, just allowing you to prone like other games, but is kind of a big deal in the creation engine and in Fallout 4. If you guys do enjoy the content, you can leave a like or subscribe, but otherwise, let's kick things off with Tactical Action Extension Package. This is the very mod that allows you to go prone in Fallout 4, something that a lot of us probably have dreamed of, but never thought we'd actually see. This mod is implemented really freaking well. In the post itself, the mod author describes just how long it took him to actually get everything working for this and how painstaking it actually was. So if you think this is even remotely cool, I highly recommend giving him an endorsement or even a download, as mod authors do get paid from that now. But either way, in effect, the way this is going to work is there's a few different options through this mod. First and foremost, there's two primary actions here. Either you can do a slide effect that you can then go prone into, or alternatively, you can just hit a different key and it will make you go prone automatically. You can assign these keys from a new menu added in by this mod, but even further, there's two separate prone modes, as I'll kind of call it. One where you're actually flat on your stomach facing forward, and a separate one that you are actually on your back, kind of curled over. Each of these have their own custom animations for when you're moving around or actually entering into them. And there's a drop down in that aforementioned menu that allows you to select one or the other. There is one decently sized caveat with this mod though. Even though that sliding effect does presently work with every single weapon, the actual prone mode only works with a select few weapons, and quite literally only 3 as of right now, that being the RU-556, the Chris Vector, as well as the XM-2010. This is because the mod author has to manually add each of these mods, so hopefully we'll see more in the future, whether it be by the original creator or other parties. As you can see in the background, this also only works in third person due to engine restrictions, so that probably won't be changed at least anytime soon, but otherwise it is quite effective. As you actually are in the prone mode, you will be way harder to detect naturally because you're laying down. And if you're a sniper or just trying to kind of get a good angle on an enemy, this is pretty practical and usable in game. I feel like a lot of times you would find a mod like this that even though it's cool, it'd be almost kind of gimmicky, but not really this one. It adds in a new prone mode into Fallout 4, which at first glance again sounds pretty simple, but actually is a fairly big deal and it is pretty cool. But hey, what is the point of a good prone mod if you don't have something to use it on? And then next up we do have Chaotic Sun. This is actually a really interesting mod that has almost a lackluster description in the sense that it just doesn't tell you how much it actually is bringing to the table. Although a quick disclaimer, this still is a work in progress, so stuff you are seeing might be expanded upon in future versions. But either way, at its core, this is going to be a New Lands dungeon mod. You're going to hop on a boat and be teleported to a totally new location. Once there, you're going to find a bar as well as just a kind of small settlement with various traders where you can actually get some new and unique items. This mod's going to add in a ton of weapons and grenades and all sorts of things that I'll talk more about in a moment, but just a short walk away from that, you can find several dungeons that are quite branching, actually have really good level design, as well as custom and unique enemies. They are still reusing vanilla assets, so they're gonna look pretty familiar to you, but oftentimes they might have a unique effect about them, or just in general be a lot harder than enemies you're used to seeing. This dungeon also takes full advantage of sound effects, both just as you're exploring it, sometimes when you're taking down various enemies, and it has a nice spooky feel, making it a lot more fun than it would be if it was just kind of normal. The dungeons themselves will give you quite a few hours of enjoyment, but one of the other cool aspects of this mod is all of the new weapons that are added in. You've been seeing a lot of them in the background. They have special or cool effects. Many of them reuse default models, so they'll probably also look pretty familiar to you. Many of these do feature custom sound effects and, of course, custom abilities. Typically, I'm not a huge fan of weapon mods that don't have a ton in the way of custom animations or custom models, but this is without a doubt the exception, because one, there's just so many new and unique things added in that you can just find as you start progressively clearing through the dungeons, but even further, just a lot of these are really fun to use. Outside of just the raw weapon mods themselves, it also adds in a couple of new mechanics. On several of the new weapon mods you do find, you do have the option to attach a grenade launcher to it, and this works kind of in the way you would think. It now has a new hotkey, which when you hit it, it will launch a grenade instead of firing the typical gun. Not many mods have actually pulled this off, off or even attempted it, but this one does it in a really nice way. There's no real animation for reloading the grenade or anything like that, but as far as practical applications go, it is quick, easy to use, but also didn't really feel overpowered. And even further, outside of just using all of these weapons in the dungeons themselves, you'll almost certainly take quite a few back with you to the Commonwealth. And for that reason, even though this mod I don't think has the best mod page right now, I would highly recommend checking it out. You probably should be on a fairly high level character, but it is a ton of fun. It's definitely quite a few hours of enjoyment, and even more after that with some of the weapons you take home with you. Then we do have Inner City Ambience. This is a kind of shift from the rest of these mods. I think the best way to actually showcase this one to you is, well, for you to listen to it. So as you hopefully could hear, what this mod is going to do is add in several new sound effects as you're walking through some of the urban areas of Fallout 4. Several of these are quite jarring. It definitely has almost a spooky feel to it without inherently being a scary mod, but I also think it's just overall an improvement. It makes these cities feel a little bit more dynamic and almost mysterious. If you're walking around already kind of on edge, as you probably are in these cities just because of how many enemies there are, at least if you're on survival mode, hearing a loud bang out of nowhere will actually up the ante. It'll make it a little bit more tense, and I personally enjoy this. It makes cities feel like they have a bit more flavor than they do by default, and for that reason, I think it's a pretty welcome addition to most people's games. A couple of days ago, I did make a video looking at some of the weird mods that have recently released for Fallout 4. If you missed that one, I would recommend checking it out. Even though they are a little bit odd for this channel, they still are pretty interesting mods. One such one was an anime face replacer that allowed you to change the look of your character. Even though at first glance you might view that mod as kind of odd, it has more downloads and endorsement than any other mod I showed in that video, or even this one, or really anything else released in the past month. There's quite clearly an audience for it, and if you're part of that audience, you could actually expand the anime faces to all over the Commonwealth, as a recently released mod is going to make it so you could replace the face of every single NPC in Fallout 4. That's a pretty monumental achievement. It definitely is going to change the look of your game. I don't know if you're going to love that or hate it, but either way, all in all, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. Hopefully you found it informative. As always with these videos, hopefully you like one of the mods and are going to download them. I do have links to everything I just talked about in the description down below. Several of these mods are kind of a big deal. They're definitely going to add quite a few hours of enjoyment to Fallout 4 or new mechanics that the game has been kind of longing for. Either way, as always, again, I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.